All right, so what we ended up doing today in reading is so like last time in class, I'll show you this first. So last time in class, we were on page 22, and we were talking about the plot chart, which is what we did for this one. So this is the one that we did last class. It was Mother Bruce, and we talked through the exposition, conflict, rising action, resolution of conflict, falling action, and resolution of story. And then we also figured out like a theme for that book. Okay, so that was for Mother Bruce. The other book that we have read, and this is actually the one we're doing today, in the sense of doing the plot chart, is Tough Cookie. So it's on this one. It was something that I read to you guys in class as well. So we're going to kind of take that story apart, and we're going to put it in the plot chart. Okay. So I know that you do not have your notebook, and that's all right. So if you don't have it, we're going to do it on a separate sheet of paper. So you do need to have a piece of paper that you're going to write on, and we're going to do it this way. And then when you get back to school, you're going to put it into your notebook. Okay. All right, so for this one, we're going to just label this at the top. We're going to write Tough Cookie. Just put that at the top. And then we're going to put this into 6 different boxes, about the same size. So 6 different boxes there. As I'm going through this, if you need to pause for any time, because if I'm going too fast, you can do that as well, okay? All right, so we're going to label these boxes, and since we do have the plot chart normally, it normally looks like this, and it has the conflict. It makes it that way, and it goes like this. So that's how it looks on page 22, so I'll show you that again. But because it goes up and down like that, so see how it goes, starts here, then it goes up, and then it goes down. So because it's like that, I'm going to have like just a really faint line underneath here in the sense that it goes like this, because that's essentially how I want you to kind of visualize the story going, is that it takes a lot longer to get up the hill than it does to get down the hill, okay? All right, so this bottom one down here, this is going to be number 1, then we're going to do number 2, then we'll do number 3, then we'll go over here, do number 4, 5, 6, okay? So this is just kind of setting up for the sense of what each one is. The first one is going to be exposition. That's kind of like the boring part. It kind of goes through who is doing what and where is it taking place. Then we also have, after that, we have the conflict. We've talked about in class how you have to have the word but in your conflict, because there's not a conflict if a character just wants something or doesn't want something. You have to have what is in the way of them getting that, okay? Number 3 is going to be rising action. That's the majority of the story. 4 is resolution to conflict. Number 5 is falling action. And number 6 is resolution to story. So your piece of paper should look very similar to my piece of paper, and if you need to pause to make it look like that, you can, but that's how it should look, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take apart the story Tough Cookie and kind of go through that. I'm going to show you on the screen kind of some parts in the book, but we'll kind of go through there, okay? So Tough Cookie was about this cookie that was in a jar, and basically there's a whole life within inside the jar. So as we're looking at this, comes down to this portion right here. So this is Tough Cookie, and what Tough Cookie is doing in this particular thing is he's going to be protecting the crumbs from different things, okay? So he's protecting the crumbs. He's going to make sure that he helps them out, and he's at the bottom of the jar. So the exposition is that we have Tough Cookie, and I'm going to abbreviate Tough Cookie to be TC. So TC, protecting crumbs at bottom jar. Okay, so that's all I'm going to put down. TC, so that's Tough Cookie, protecting crumbs at bottom jar. Okay, then we get to the conflict, and the conflict comes through right here. So Pecan Sandy, she's basically talking to a Tough Cookie and saying, hey, you know, your buddy Chips, well, Fingers got him. And so Fingers is actually like the antagonist, where Tough Cookie's the protagonist. And Chips, this is where the conflict starts, because he's like, what? Fingers got him? And so the conflict, and it's interesting to me, because I think the conflict kind of comes through is that he doesn't like the fact that Fingers is coming in and taking people. Because if we keep kind of, and I'll show you this a little bit later, but it kind of comes into play too, that this happens a lot. And so you think about a cookie jar. People put their hands in a cookie jar a lot because they want the cookies. Okay? But Tough Cookie, and again, we have to have the word but in the conflict. So we're going to say that Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone. That is only part of the conflict. It's not the whole conflict yet. We have to have the word but in there. So I'm going to write mine in all caps. So Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone, but we have to think about what is in the way of that. There's lots of things that we could do. There's an external conflict, but there's also an internal conflict. And throughout this story, it's kind of like he's fearful, because a lot of it is that he thinks through like this memory of like, oh man, I remember my mom, my dad at the top of the jar. So like for me, like when I hear that, I'm inferring that his mom and dad got taken by Fingers. He also did a case with Chips, and they were not able to save those cookies either. So again, he's kind of fearful. So I kind of look at this and say, Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone, but Tough Cookie is too scared. That would be like the internal conflict. Okay. You could also do an external conflict. You could have said Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone, but Fingers, you could say Fingers wants cookies to eat. Something like that. Okay. So conflict. Then we get to rising action. Rising action is the majority of the story. These are the things that happen for him to try to get Fingers gone. So something right here, this kind of goes back to that flashback. So you're going to write down 2 of these. And if you end up writing down 2 while I'm talking through it, great. If you wait until I write mine down, that's fine too. So he has this memory. So again, like this right here. So he has mom, dad, the top of the jar, the knock of the door, Fingers. And later me and Chips, the Farfigneuse case, tried to save them. Couldn't. Fingers. So looking at this, it really kind of hones in on the fact that he does have that internal conflict and that he is too scared of Fingers. Okay, so that can be a rising action. Another piece of rising action is that he goes and talks to the police. Another piece of rising action is that the Crumbs offer to help him. Another piece of rising action is that Tough Cookie says, no, I got to do it by myself. Rising action, he makes his way up to top jar. Rising action, he talks to Gumdrop, asks where Fingers is. Rising action, Fingers has now taken place. We are in the jar. So Fingers entering jar could be rising action. This is also rising action. The fact that Fingers has grabbed Tough Cookie, that's rising action. Okay, so you're going to choose 2 of them to write, and I only want 2. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my 2. If you wrote 2 different ones in this, that's fine. So the first one I'm going to write is that, what am I trying to say? I'm going to do this one. Crumbs offer to help Tough Cookie. And then the other one is I'm going to say a Tough Cookie says he has to stop Fingers by himself. Okay, so those are the 2 that I'm going to put down. I do want you to put 2 down as well. But again, if you have 2 different ones than me, that's okay. So all the things that I ended up saying up until that point is rising action. Okay, then we get down to the resolution of conflict. This is where it has to match the conflict. So the conflict is that Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone. So basically when Fingers is gone, that's when the resolution of conflict happens. And so that's what happens on this page. So Fingers is in the top jar, and then the Crumbs all come. They come to save the day, and they essentially just make sure all they're getting is crumbs. And so the last page here too, it says, finally, it's over. Okay, so that's where that resolution of conflict comes into place. So again, Tough Cookie wants Fingers gone. So Fingers, I'm going to say up here, Fingers is gone, and for now, but Fingers is gone because Crumbs take over. Then I could also say all Fingers gets are crumbs, even though he wants a cookie. That's all he's getting. So imagine that. Like, if he wanted a cookie and he always gets the crumbs, he's probably somewhat angry. And so he's like, well, forget this. There's nothing in here. So he goes away. So that's where the conflict has been resolved. Fingers is gone. It matches. They wanted Fingers gone. Fingers is gone. Okay, so we get to following action, which is this page right here. You can see they're all happy and smiley because they won. So we have Tough Cookie, we have Pecan Sandy, and we have Crumbs, and they're all happy because they won. Okay, so that's what I'm going to write. So I'm going to write Tough Cookie, Pecan Sandy, and Crumbs. I'm going to put celebrate their victory over Fingers. Okay, so that's what you're going to write there. Okay, and then we get to the very, very last page, which is the resolution of the story, where it says the end. And it's right here. We have Pecan Sandy and we have Tough Cookie, and they have fallen in love. They are back together again. Okay, so I'm just going to put TC, which is Tough Cookie, plus Pecan Sandy, and then I'm going to put equals, and I'm just going to put a heart. Okay, so TC, Tough Cookie, and Pecan Sandy, they're back together. All right, so that is the story elements chart for Tough Cookie. Something else I wanted to do with this as well is the same thing we did with Mother Bruce, is talk about the theme of the book, thinking about what the character learned or why the author chose this. Something I remember to show the kids in class is that on page 24, we do have a lot of different themes available for this. A lot of the kids ended up using it and kind of looking through different things, because again, your theme may not be 100% the same as my theme, and that's okay. Something that stuck out to a lot of kids today is they went to the topic of belief and perseverance, because the fact that he had this internal conflict that he was too scared to do something, it kind of comes down to this whole thing: believe in yourself, never give up, hard work brings great rewards. So if one of these things makes sense to you, you can add that onto your piece of paper, and I'll show you where to do that in a second. Something else, let's see, someone did war and courage, face your fears. Oh, you can't see that, sorry. Face your fears, accepting a challenge to lead to something positive. A lot of people did this other thing too, in the fact of like working together, like teamwork is dream or makes the dream work. You could do something of that nature, in the sense that everyone came together to, even the Crumbs, to kind of get the situation and get Fingers gone. Okay, so if one of those makes more sense to you, I want you to write that down. But somewhere on this piece of paper, I'm going to have you write the word theme. I'm just going to do it down here at the bottom. So I'm going to write the word theme. And then I'm going to write down a theme that I think represents it. If yours is the same, great. If yours is different, that's fine too. So I'm going to write teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so make sure you have your theme on there. And that's really kind of all I wanted to do for this particular part. So what you will end up doing with this is it will end up coming back to school with you, and we will make sure to put it onto page 22 if you want to put 22 in the corner. That way you know what page to put it on in your notebook. You can do that. But that's what you're going to do for me for today. So again, if you need to go back through and re-listen to it, or if you need to pause something, you can do that. But this is something that you need to take a picture of it and send it to me, so that way I know that you did it and I can give you credit for it. Otherwise, it's going to be put in as missing until it comes back so I can see it. Okay? So make sure that's good to go. And then the last thing that I want you to do for me today is we actually did a reflection. And so you're going to email me your reflection, you're going to email me your reflection. So I'm going to show you what that is. The reflection that we ended up doing today was this right here. This is the question: how do the elements below help us comprehend our reading? So the elements are these things right here. These are all the things that we have done in class so far. So we have talked about fiction signposts. We've talked about characters. We've talked about plot, chart, and story elements, which is what we just got done doing with Tough Cookie. We've talked about conflict. We've talked about Greek and Latin roots. So what I want you to do today in your reflection is you're going to email me your response to that question. How are all of these things helping us comprehend what we're reading? How are fiction signposts helping us comprehend what we are reading? A lot of times with fiction signposts is that fiction signposts, they just make you stop and think about what you're reading. So that's something you could write down. They make me stop and think about what I'm reading. You can even do a specific one if you remember one of them, like aha moment or memory moment. It makes us stop and think about, why is that so important to the story? Okay? Because reading is not just reading, reading is thinking. Characters. Why is it important to understand that there's different characters? In the sense of like maybe why would it be important to know the difference between a round character versus a flat character? Plot chart. Why is it important to know those things? It's important because you can break the story apart. Makes more sense that way. Conflict notes. Why are there different conflicts? Why is it important to understand that there are different conflicts in the sense that you have an internal conflict versus an external conflict? How does that help you comprehend things as a reader? Greek and Latin roots. Again, like that just helps you to break apart words so you understand the meaning. So again, how does that help you comprehend what you're reading? Okay, so you're going to email me your response again to this question: how do the elements below help us comprehend our reading? And you can use those specific things as you are talking through. Okay, so I'm looking for an email with your reflection. I am also looking for an email that has a picture of this, and if it's in the same email, that's fine. If it's indifferent, that's fine. So that's what I'm looking from you. Otherwise, that's all I have, and I'll see you when you get back.